Hey everybody, happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for making the time to watch this replay. Today we are wrapping up Email Marketing Month, answering questions that have been submitted all throughout the month and any questions that you have. So if you are joining us live, drop those questions in the comments below and then hang on to your hats because I am not alone today. I have a special guest expert with me. Before I bring her on, in case you don't know me or don't know me well, and this is the first time you're catching one of my videos, my name is Karie Price. I'm a brand messaging coach, helping ambitious service-based business owners find and own the words to stand out, be heard, and make your message roar. And we're going to be recapping some of the topics we've been covering this week. But like I said, before I do that, I have a special guest expert joining me this week, my good friend, launch strategist, Lesley Clavijo. Lesley, hi. Thank you so much for joining me today. Introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Karie, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk to your group about my favorite thing, which is email marketing. And believe it or not, like you discussed this week, email marketing is not dead and it's not going away. And it's actually one of the staples to launching any products, services, digital, physical, it doesn't matter. It's one of the key strategies and probably I would say the most important strategy that you should focus on when it comes to launching anything in your business. And I know we're going to dig into the nitty-gritty details throughout this Q&A, but I realized really fast when I started my business online 8 years ago that email was the best way to connect with people. It was the fastest way, it was the way that I had the most control. And so I started from the beginning growing email lists for every business I've had online. So as you can tell, I'm super passionate about it, so I'm super excited to talk more with you. So not only have I grown several businesses online for myself, which email marketing was key, I've also worked for other people's companies as well to help them kind of nail down their email marketing strategy and help them raise their sales through email marketing. So it's really important if you have any products, any services, or if you ever plan to really have a solid email marketing strategy. It's not one of those things where you can just collect people in this little pot and then all of a sudden say, hey guys, I have something to sell. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and I knew when I got to this Q&A that there was nobody better to bring on with me than you because I know you love email marketing as much as I do, and that I couldn't wait for everyone to hear your perspective about it. We've got some people joining us live. If you're joining us live, say hello. Good morning, Veronica. Good morning, Elizabeth. So glad you guys could join us today. If you have questions about email marketing, go ahead and drop those in the comments, and we will make sure that we get to those while we're together. Let me recap a little bit what we've talked about all month long because I want to pick Lesley's brain a little bit and see if she's got any extra tips that I haven't already covered. So she's already shared with you, I started the month off by talking about the fact that email marketing is not dead. And again, couldn't think of anyone better to bring on with me than Lesley. This is a really important strategic part of your business. One of the weeks we talked about how to get people on your email list. And Lesley, I would love to know if you've got one favorite tip or a most important strategy that people should be thinking about when building their list.
So you're going to have lots of different perspectives from all the gurus out there that are going to tell you, this is the best way, this is the best way. And the bottom line is, nobody is right and nobody is wrong. So let me just start off with that. So the very best way to get that everybody will say, we'll all agree, the very best way to get people on your email list is to offer a free something, a free, there's so many different things, a free download, a free video course, a free 15-minute consult if you're service-based. So there's lots of free things, a free coupon if you're product-based, like physical or digital product-based, really. So there's lots of different free things you can offer. Now here's where the debate comes in. How much is too much to offer? So should I give away a lot? Should I give away a little? What really is the not just the length, but the value of what I should give away? And here's my opinion on that. So you don't want to give away so much where people feel overwhelmed and they don't consume the information. Okay. And so I'm guilty of that as well. I have a download right now that I'm probably it's very popular, but I might reassess, but it's like an ebook. So here's the problem. People may get it and they may love it, but a cold audience might not necessarily consume all of that content. My warm audience, people that know and love me, they download it and they're like, woo, free ebook. Right. And it grows that relationship with them. But really, we're focusing on cold traffic when it comes to freebies a lot of times. And so when you're giving away something so bulky, it's hard for them to consume it and they forget about it and therefore they don't really get value from it. So what I typically would say is, how can you create immense value but make it easily digestible so it's not too much for them to consume? So I guess put it in this perspective. Length or amount, if it's time, does not necessarily equal value. Okay.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah. And if you want to speak on that for a minute, I don't know how much you guys got into that, but really it's not so much the length. It's more about the value.
Yeah.
You don't want to overwhelm.
Totally agree with you, Lesley. We had really interesting conversation around that exact point. And I'll include links in the description to all the prior Facebook Live trainings as well. But Lesley, this is where you and I completely agree. I like short, actionable, get me like some traction, but don't completely solve the problem. I totally believe in not overwhelming our audiences. Look, people can overwhelm themselves with information out there. Let's be honest, right? As experts, it's our job to boil that all down to the things that are going to matter. So I totally agree. And I just want to welcome Cheryl Springer, Chris Morris. Thank you guys so much for joining us live today. So excited.
So the other thing about the whole freebie being too much to give away is that you also want to leave them kind of hungry for more. So think about the freebie as the appetizer, which when you go to a restaurant and you pay $15-20 for an appetizer, you still want it to be really good, right? But you don't want it to fill you up so much that you have no need to ever go on to the main course, much less dessert. So you definitely want to kind of make sure that you are, you're providing value, but you're also leaving some space for them to want to purchase something from you, maybe book a consult with you or buy your digital product or whatnot. So you want to make sure that it's also not giving away everything right up front. So you're not providing the meal right up front when they come to your site.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And I want to say a shout out to hello, Melanie and Janet. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We're so excited to have you here. Lesley, you and I definitely are so on the same page about that. Okay, let's move on to the next topic I tackled this month was what to do with people once they're on your list. And we talked about frequency, the kinds of content to send, segmentation a little bit. What are some of your best tips or thoughts when thinking about how to really use your list, but without burning them out or overdoing it?
Okay, so my very first tip is to set up what I call a nurture sequence. So it is an automated set of responses or an automated set of emails that goes out after they download your free thing. So the very first one can just be welcome and here's your free download. I subscribed to somebody's list the other day and I got 3 emails at once. So I would not recommend that. It was like boom, boom, boom. And I was like, what are these? So one was the freebie, and then the other 2 were like exact replicas. So make sure, number one, that could possibly tell different email clients or the systems that you're spamming them if you're sending out 3 boom, boom, boom right at the same time. Second of all, it's again overwhelming. So I like to send out one auto response that says welcome and here's your freebie. I don't like to overwhelm them too much with a welcome email right off the bat. It's not, if it works for you and you want to send out, here's the link to the freebie and here's a welcome email, if that works, that's fine. But I typically like to space it out a day just so they can get the freebie, get excited, and then I kind of welcome them into my email list. And then I typically send out an email just providing more value, telling them a little bit about how I can help them, not necessarily about myself and my life, unless it relates. And then unless it relates to my customer or my reader, I should say. And then those people will then be dumped into my newsletter list, my newsletter segment. So then after I've kind of nurtured them and we've gotten to know each other a little bit better, they'll go into the newsletter list where they'll start getting a weekly newsletter from me.
Awesome. I love it. And I love how you called out to be careful not to send too many emails at once. One, that overwhelms people. They're like, wait, whoa, hello, I just wanted your freebie. But
Exactly.
Two, yeah, really important to be thinking about not getting your emails marked as spam. And last week, inside my free group, The Messaging Den, for those of you who aren't there, you can join that. Go to themessagingden.com. I shared a really great article I came across about email deliverability and things to be watching for so that more of your emails land in the inbox, fewer of them get tagged as spam. So if you want more tips about that, you can go and check that out. You can search for hashtag email marketing. Or if you join the group and can't find it, let me know and I'll point you right to it. Cheryl says it looks like we're almost in the same room. Doesn't it? Like, we do have very similar backgrounds going.
I think we look like we could be sisters too with our dark hair.
We're even wearing like similar colors today.
Oh, that's funny.
I love it. All right, so let's dive into some questions. Now, all month long, I've been answering some of the questions. Chris says, great group. Thanks, Karie. Thanks, Chris. I'm so glad you love the Messaging Den. I think it's a great group too. I'm a little biased, but
yeah, I know I have some of my people watching right now, guys, and go join Karie's group because it is awesome. Karie is just so smart and so helpful with brand messaging. So go join.
Thank you. Ditto. We're going to make sure everyone knows about Lesley's group too. Okay, I've been answering some questions all month long, but there were some questions that were really great that didn't sort of fall in, or I was running out of time. So I've queued those up for today because I want your input on them as well. For those of you who are joining us live, drop any questions in the comments that you have. If you're watching the replay, drop your questions in and we'll come back and answer them. I'll answer every single one. I'll tag Lesley in to make sure we get her opinion on those as well. So don't be afraid to ask. This time is open Q&A just for you guys. And I'm going to ask questions, and Lesley and I are both going to share our opinions on them. They might be similar. They might be different. Like Lesley was saying just a little bit ago, everyone has different opinions. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. But we'll share with you our thoughts so that you can decide what works well for you and your business. And if you have follow-up questions, drop those in the comments, and we're happy to expand on those as well. So Lesley, these are in no particular order other than I just started collecting them and dropping them in a document. I'm just going to run down the list and we'll just keep going until we run out of questions, if that's okay.
Yep, sounds perfect.
Awesome. All right. The first one is, do you have recommendations on the best length and the number of characters for a subject line? And if there's any data that backs that. And I'd like to broaden that just a little bit in general about subject line etiquette or tips. And why don't you start us off with this one?
Okay, so my answer is I don't know for a fact if the length matters, but what I try to do is any buzzwords or anything that would really catch somebody's eye, I try to put towards the beginning of that subject line because it does get cut off. And I honestly do not know. That's when you told me that this was going to be a question just a few minutes ago, I was like, oh man, that's a really great question. That's something that I should look up. So my answer is I'm going to look it up and see how many characters actually show up in a subject line. And then maybe we can post that in the group. And my suggestion is to make sure that whatever it is that you really want people to see, like if you have a sale going on or a promotion, you definitely don't want to write I don't know how many words, but like 10-word title, and then that part be the last few words and it gets completely cut off because it won't show up. So, Length, I'm not 100% sure on. What I would do and what I tell everybody is test, test, and test. So if maybe one word, you do a split test. If you're in ConvertKit and many other different types of email marketing systems, you can split test. So you could do 2 words, flash sale, and then, the one that you're split testing could be, don't miss this, great deals ahead, or whatever, something like that. So split tested, see what your audience resonates with better. I think it's going to be different for different audiences, like all things. So what are your thoughts? Do you know? I'm curious to know.
I agree with you. This is an excellent question. And I don't have a specific answer for length, but here's some of the things that I've heard, learned, starting to test out myself, because I'm with you. You've got to test and see what works. I agree with you. You want to make sure the front part of that message is really going to get people's attention, because you guys look at your own inboxes. You can see that like long subject lines get cut off. And so you want the powerful stuff in the front. I've also heard that emojis get attention. So I've been experimenting, including emojis in my subject lines, because when I'm looking at a long list of emails in my inbox, those just visually catch my attention.
So let's talk about that really, really quick. I'm going to interrupt you.
Yeah.
So I have tested emojis on my account and other people's accounts as well. And one of the things, and I did an interview last week where the person said, I always know when your weekly newsletter is coming because it's a little envelope with a heart. And, and so for the other company I worked for, she has her whole theme is feminine WordPress designs. So what we started doing with her weekly newsletter is we put the little pink flower emoji. So every time that landed in our customer's inbox, they knew this is her weekly newsletter. So it's different than all the other promotions. And there's people out there that say, oh, it looks so unprofessional to have these cutesy emojis. And I'm all about being professional. But at the same time, it's color. Color is landing in their inbox. And when you're scanning hundreds of emails, if you sign up to as many things as I do, the ones with the color next to it are really going to pop.
We're going to keep going and see if we can't get through this. And you know what? If we have to, we'll find another alternative to get this information to you if this the quality of this just becomes too poor. But I want to go back and recap really quick, because I know we cut out again the emoji in the subject line. So just going to try and recap that one more time. So using a consistent emoji with your regular newsletter will help that stand out in people's inbox. So it drops color in the inbox, and it provides a consistent thing for them to look for, so they know that's your weekly newsletter, separate from promotions or anything else you're doing. One thing I do for like my emails that go out to paid programs, for my clients, I put in brackets the name of the program so they can easily filter for those emails and know that they're not missing any of that. But the last tip I wanted to share around subject lines is to treat it like writing headlines for your blog posts, and load it with words that are really going to get people's attention. Think about what's going to encourage people to actually open your email. And you do want to be careful about not using words that will trigger those spam filters we were mentioning a little bit earlier. And so again, that article that I've got shared, shared in my group, it lists some of the common words to avoid so that your emails get delivered. Yeah, Veronica, in brackets. I put the subject of the name of my course in brackets when it's related to a course.
I do the same thing. I have initials for my course, and so I just label those emails with the initials. And I actually have a special template that matches the branding of the course, so that when they open it up, they're like, okay, this is specifically just for me because I'm a student.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, we're putting the branded templates in place in my emails as well. All right, let's see if we can't move on to another question. I hope the tech gremlins behave. All right, similar to the length question on the subject lines, what's an ideal length for the body of the email? Anything that might affect click-through rates. And let's bundle this with, there's another similar questions about calls to action. So how much content should we be throwing in a single email, Lesley? And what's your take on short versus long?
Okay, I read somewhere where as far as spam filters, the short emails do better than long emails. And I can't really recall what the reasoning was behind that. It might be the same article you shared, but it talks about shorter body. And again, it's all about providing value without overwhelming. And so if my suggestion is to really try to get everything you have to say, but in the least amount of words as you possibly can, because people are in a rush. And really, if it's extending beyond a couple of paragraphs, then that's probably something that should be in a blog post or in a YouTube video or your core kind of content. So I would say I personally would keep it to about 3 paragraphs. Really try to break it up. You want to make it visually easy to consume and to scan. But again, I'm going to always go back to this. Test it. Test it, test it, test it. And you'll see.
Yeah, totally. Cheryl says, I'm big on one simple call to action. Yeah, Cheryl, I'm similar to you and similar to what Leslie's saying. I prefer short versus long content as a consumer, especially. And so there are times that sometimes you feel like there's a lot of content that needs to be shared. So I recommend keeping it to a single topic. Right. And now if you're doing like a digest email, like I do a monthly recap email and I highlight like, here's key things. If you need to have longer content, make it skimmable, make it easy for people to identify information. Bullet points are great. Bolded headlines are great. So find some way to break it up so it doesn't just look like, 3 pages of content, and you don't know what it is you want people to focus on.
Right. As far as the call to actions go, it just, for me, depends on what the purpose of your newsletter or your email is. So for me, my weekly newsletter is typically 1 paragraph that's very personal, something that's really relatable, something that's going on in my world, like something that happened that I can translate into my subject matter. And then the next section is a link to my weekly Facebook Live, which happens the next day. And then right now, since my group is really growing and my students are, I've got a lot of students launching, I highlight whoever's launching for the week. So if somebody's launching a program, I do link twice in my email. So 1 to the Facebook Live and 1 to the product or service that one of my students is launching. So if you're doing like what you said, like a monthly recap or a weekly newsletter that's linking to a couple of different highlights from that week, then it's okay to have a couple of call to actions. We don't want more. I would say more than 3 gets a little overwhelming, but just remember that they're kind of like wanting to see what you're doing over the week, and you can have a couple in there. Now, if it is a sales email, if it's an email where you're getting someone to sign up for a program or buy a product, you definitely want to keep the same call to action throughout the email. But that's 1 call to action, but several times. So you're going to link to it in the first paragraph, you can link to it in the middle of your email, and you can link to it in the last part, and even link to it in a PS. And I know you were going to ask about PSs here in a minute. So that's 1 call to action in any sales email, but you're using it multiple times. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree. Because that way, if, they're reading at the top, they know right away what the topic is. They can click that link and get right to whatever that page is. If they're continuing to read, it should reinforce it, but don't make them scroll for the link.
Well, and as a messaging expert, you know that there are different words that resonate with different people. And so you don't want to just always say, click here, click here, click here, click here. You can be very creative with what it is that you're saying to, draw that click to that sales page. The other thing that's really important to mention is if you're using graphics in your email body, so if you're creating buttons, like a buy now button, let's say in Canva or any other program, and you place that image and you link it to a call to action, you need to remember that you cannot just put that image there with that link. You need to also do a hyperlink, because a lot of people have their images turned off, and it'll say, hey, buy my program, click the button below, and then there's no button. I learned my lesson the hard way when I sent that out to 20,000 people and they said, where's the button? So you always, if you're using images, which is fine, you can always test that. If you're creating a button that says click here or buy now, you always want to hyperlink below it with the words, buy now or whatever call to action you want to use, because people with their images off, I'm just repeating this, will not see that button and they will be very confused.
Oh, good tip. Good tip. Yeah. And a lot of people do that as a potential phishing filter, right? They don't want to download email with images that might embed code and things that they don't want. So it is a security measure that a good number of people probably take. So very good to be aware of that, Lesley. Great.
Well, and by default in my iCloud email, so through Mac, I've never turned that feature on, but by default it's set so that none of my images pull up. I have to click the load images on the individual email to see, any types of images that are coming in. So it's also some email clients are also already putting that as a pre-setting in your inbox. So just keep that in mind.
Especially like it's on the edge of tripping the spam filter. They'll do that for your protection and say like, do you want to see the images in this email? Do you want to load those up? Because those are references to servers, like from a technical perspective, right? So it's if you're on the edge of tripping a spam filter, it might trigger that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and segue into that PS. And what's your take on using PSs in your emails and in combination with calls to action, or is this separate call to action?
So again, the PS in a sales email needs to be the same call to action, in my opinion, as all the rest, because you're really just doing one thing. You're trying to drive people to your sales page. Okay. The only exception is if you want to say, if you have any questions about this program, contact me or something like that. But again, I don't do that too frequently. I try to keep all of the calls to actions the same in a sales email. Now, when it's in a newsletter, again, that can be another type of call to action, but it's probably going to be the most important thing you want to draw attention to in that email. So it might be like a second reminder of that first call to action that you had, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I love to use a PS because I always tell my students, I say, whenever you're consuming content, take note of how it makes you feel and what you like and what you don't like, because chances are other people feel that way too. So I personally like a good, strong PS that's kind of recapping everything. That's like, I love it when people say, oh, you're a skimmer too. I use that a lot. Here's what you missed. Here's what the email was about. And it's just like, join my program, click this button, whatever. You can be more creative than that. I like them, and I use PS and PPSs a lot. So yeah, I think they're great. But again, going back to what I always say, test it. If you're not seeing clicks on the PS, if you feel like nobody's responding to them, don't use them. But I actually have people that email me back and say, your PS was hilarious. Because I try to be funny. Am I always? Probably not. But but some people think I am. So I've actually had people respond and say, that PS was awesome. I'm stealing it. And I'm like, okay, fine. So yeah, make sure you just test it. I think they're great. Again, newsletters, recap emails, stick to only 3 calls to action, not too many more. And then in a sales email, all the calls to action, even in the PS, need to be the same. But PSs are great. You can be creative with them. And I think they catch a lot of people's attention.
Yeah, so I actually personally have conflicting opinions about the PS. I agree with you. I think it's a great opportunity for your brand personality to show, and everything that you put out there needs to be consistent with the personality. And if being funny and being approachable is part of that, leverage that in all the content that you write. For me, where I see PS is used, it's because the email is really long, and I'm not a proponent of long emails. So if it is a long, more sales-focused email, I agree. Drop a PS at the bottom for the people that are going to skim. They're like, just tell me the thing I need to know. Although that can be above your signature line too. So I actually don't use PSs very much. The one place I do use it is when I'm sending the email that contains the freebie, and I say like, here's your freebie. And I say, PS, by the way, if you haven't already joined. Okay, we're back.
Okay,
so
perfect.
Weird. It keeps dropping out. Okay, we're back, you guys. Yeah, so I don't use PSs a lot, but I see them used, and if you can use them well, I say go for it. So, like you said, test it out.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. I really only tend to use PSs in sales emails. It's just kind of like, hey, my program's open. You only have this much time, join here. But I do get creative and quirky and funny with them. But like you said, test, because you just never know what's going to work and what's not. So, and this isn't necessarily a PS, but it's kind of similar. So in my template in ConvertKit for my weekly newsletter, I have a template that's called Join Facebook Newsletter. That's what I called it. So in that template, I have a little button that's embedded into the template. And again, if they have images off, they're probably not seeing it, but enough people are, because I know people are joining through my newsletter, that says join my Facebook group. And it shows up in the template at the very bottom of every newsletter email. So every week, the people that are on my email list that have not joined my Facebook group, they see that little button and they click. And then every time I send it out, I have, multiple people that join each week, and they say, because I asked them, where did you hear about this group? And they say newsletter. So
awesome. That's a great way to use that area. Awesome. Perfect. Okay. We have a couple questions that are similar, so I'm going to try and summarize. Chris asks, let me show his comment here on the screen. Do you consider learning styles appealing to people who learn in different ways, visual, auditory, etc.? And I had another similar question that we'll sort of group together. Would you recommend emailing an audio that's enticing, where like right now there's a lot of focus on visual. So what kinds of content, Lesley, do you consider including with your emails, and how would you account for that?
Okay, so I test, like I said before, I test everything. So one of the things I was testing, and I just kind of got away from it, but I need to go back and do it more to see really how my audience responds. But what I was doing is I was recording the audio of my newsletter every week. So I would literally read my newsletter and make, an MP4 file, and just, I would put that into my WordPress site, because you can put it into your media file, and then just grab the link. And at the very beginning of each email, I was saying, prefer the audio, click here, and they could just listen, because a lot of my audience is on the go. So, they either have children, or they're caretakers of like different adults in their lives that have chronic illnesses and things like that. So they really need to be able to consume the content like on their iPhone, in their earbuds or something like that. So I say, if you know that you have a certain amount of people, let's say you're a podcast host. Yeah, sure. Embed that link. If you know people love video, you can take a screenshot of your video and link that directly to your video. So I love to test all things and see what works. But absolutely, my background is early childhood, and we always accounted for the learner. So different learning styles. And not just different learning styles, we also need to remember that there are lots of people with special needs and disabilities. Like I have people that have hearing disabilities, and I also have people who have sight and vision issues as well. And so I try to remember that and do my best to be inclusive and include different types of ways to consume content. So I definitely think that is worth a shot to test it, see what works, see what people like and what resonates with your audience, for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. And this is actually a question, it's not specific to email marketing. I mean, email is the delivery of pointing people to your content. I'm actually tackling content creation for the entire month of July. So I'm going to be diving deeper into some of the things that Lesley just shared, but how to take content and repurpose it to multiple learning styles, pros and cons, how to streamline all of that. So every week here on my business page, I will be tackling content creation tips for you all month long in July. So, but like Lesley said, and so just to really specifically, Chris, address your question, your audio or video that you include in your email, those are really links to that content being elsewhere. So again, it's part of an overall content strategy. So you need to be looking at, what kind of content do you produce? Are you doing Facebook Live videos? Are you doing pre-recorded videos on YouTube? Do you have a blog? Do you have a podcast? That's all content that you may choose to share in emails that you sent out to people. And I talked a little bit about that in last week's email too, like what to do with people, what kind of content to send them, how to segment your list so you don't burn them out. So I'll post a link to that Facebook Live also for a little bit more info on that. Chris says, great answer, Lesley. Thanks.
Yeah, the only exception, just to touch base on that again, is if you are literally recording yourself reading that email, that content's not going to go anywhere else. Like, you're not going to put that on a podcast or put that in a blog post or anything like that. You're just basically providing an audio file for them to listen to the newsletter. Again, if it's really short, like what we talked about, then you might not necessarily want to. But here's why I was testing it. I have kind of just this, as I've been told, I have kind of like a big personality, and I'm very animated. I was going to say automated. I could be both. Very animated. And so I do much better. I'm much better at speaking and being on camera than I am writing, because I just don't love to write. And so even with those short emails, I'm really able to inflect my personality and my messaging through the way I just speak in general. So I may actually go back to including those audio files again. It doesn't take that much time, but again, it does take time to do it, load it, all that. So just keep that in mind, that it's great. Having an audio clip of yourself reading your newsletter or your content may really work for your audience. But again, that is not to be shared anywhere else. That would be kind of weird, and people would have no idea what that is.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, what's this random audio? But yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. Okay. Again, if you're on with us live, drop those questions in. I've got one final question queued up that was submitted in advance. But if you have questions now about email marketing, drop those in the comments and we'll be sure to address them. If you are watching the replay, you did not miss your opportunity. Make sure you drop those in the comments and we will come back and we'll answer those in the comments for you. The last question that I want to get your thoughts on, Lesley, is the pros and cons of, let's say you've got a blog post and you want to email your list about your blog post. Do you include the entire blog post content directly in the email, or an excerpt of that and link them out to the full blog post? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so let me give you a little bit of background just real quick about myself. So when I started online, I started as a professional blogger. So I haven't always just taught people, business tips or email marketing tips online. So I actually have a professional blog. It's still up and running. It's still monetized. And it is on a completely different subject than what I teach right now. So it's DIY, organization tips, all those things. So for the purpose of that blog, I want to drive as much traffic as I possibly can to my site because it's monetized with advertisements. So the more people I get on my site, the better. So for the goal of those emails that include blog posts, it's definitely short and click through to my site. Now, I could see that you may possibly consider in maybe a B2B business including the whole article, but then again, if it's long, which most blog posts are over 300 words, then you're going back to this whole, it's, might flag spam filters. It is too hard for them to consume. So I typically always just outlink to the blog post. That's my personal opinion. If you test it and it works to have the whole thing in there, great. There are people that still do it, and I don't understand why. They may have their reasons.
Well, I'll tell you why I think, because I was on the fence the other way, but I agree with you, and I'll tell you why specifically I choose to link out too. But I used to be on the other side of the fence where I was like, look, if I'm going to sign up for your blog to get it in email, I want the thing delivered to me in email. So I get the notification. I just want to read your content. Right. So I think that's why people intend to do that. But I'm with you. Blog posts typically are longer, and I am anti-long email. Like when I have to write a long email, I sort of feel like I have to apologize for it because I just don't want to
this is going to be really long, but
yeah, it's like, this is the longest email you're ever going to get from me, but here's why I feel the need to do that. The other reason why, so in addition to monetization, because that's a really important reason. If you are monetizing your website, absolutely, it's all about driving traffic there. Even without monetization, there's two key reasons why I think it's good to link out. One, they may be getting that one email, but you've got tons of other content probably already on your site. So that gives them an opportunity to go read more from you, learn more from you, and have you establish your expertise and credibility. So by linking them to your blog, and you probably have things like down at the bottom, other articles that were similar, or they can see that there's categories and, what your most recent posts were. So it gives them an opportunity to learn more from you. And I am all about maximizing your message and making sure that you are like establishing your expertise and credibility. So I think that's a really good benefit. Okay. We're back. Let me just recap that because I know we cut off. The second benefit to using an excerpt and clicking out to your blog, it's this idea of micro conversions. You are training people to take action on your content. You're training them to want to know more about you. And so they get used to seeing links and going out and getting value. They're used to clicking links, go out to getting. So then when you get to the thing where there is an offer, they're used to clicking links and going out to getting value. So that's sort of another benefit of clicking out to the blog post.
And I thought of one more thing too, while you were talking about that, and tomorrow in my Facebook group, I'm talking about funnels. So if you have your website set up for conversion, where you're putting your offer within emails, or if you have, different calls to action on your home page where they can book a call with you or anything like that, if you're directing them off of your email and onto your website, then chances of them stumbling upon one of your offers is a lot higher than just keeping all your content within the email platform. Yeah. So that's another thing to think about as well. And then
you're not always feeling like you're having to be salesy in the email.
Exactly.
Right? Like you can add value and then they can go stumble on the offer, right? I love that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. I think we've had enough tech gremlin issues today. So first of all, I want to thank everybody who's hung with us through this whole live and all of the reconnects. Lesley, I cannot thank you enough for joining me and sharing all of your expertise. For the people who follow me and are in my group and haven't met you before yet, tell us where they can find you, how to get to your group, and tell us more about this Facebook Live that you're doing tomorrow on funnels.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so the best way to find me is to go to Facebook and go to the little search bar and type in The Launch Room. That easy. My last name is really hard to spell, but if you get in the Launch Room, you'll see links to my website and you'll be able to find me on my website. So the Launch Room is a really, really awesome community of people not just launching products and services, but we even have people that are just getting started online and launching their very first website. So we talk about all things launching, and a lot of that has to do with email marketing. But tomorrow we're talking about funnels. What a funnel is and how to start using them. When I started moving into the B2B business, a few years ago, I heard the term sales funnel and I had no idea what that was. And so I'm going to give you some real life examples of offline business. I went on a trip this weekend, rode a duck. If you guys have never heard of what a duck is. That I'm going to talk about the duck ride. No, it's not a little furry bird that I rode, but I'm going to talk about the ducks and how they used a funnel in their brick and mortar business. And then I'm going to talk about how it translates online so that you can have more of a passive way of either booking clients or creating, a passive income stream. And so it's just a really, really awesome, easy concept. It sounds so techy and so salesy because it's called a sales funnel, but it really isn't. It's a much more natural way to connect with customers and sell to them without being pushy and without being salesy. So I hope you guys can join me for that.
Let me just jump in here and say, you guys, Lesley breaks down the tech so it is not overwhelming. So if that's something that's been stressing you out about the thought of a sales funnel, be sure that you join that. And Lesley, I'm going to get that link from you and I'm going to add it to the description. I'll add a link to your group so people can directly get to that as well, because you provide so much information and help on all things launching and getting your business going without the sales being, like you said, icky, and without the tech being scary.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Awesome. All right. Janet says it was so worth the gremlins. Great information. I'm so glad, Janet. Veronica says thank you. Chris says great. Thanks to you both. And Leslie, he just applied to join your group. So go
awesome.
see that when we jump off this call. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us today. Leslie, especially thank you so much for being here with me and sharing all of your expertise. You guys, go watch her live tomorrow. I am going to do my best to be there as well. And until next week, every Tuesday here at 11 a.m. right here on my business page, we'll have a messaging mini class. Next week, it's July already, you guys. We are at the halfway mark in the year. Can you believe it? But next week, I know, I'm in denial, honestly. But next week, we kick off a new theme for the month. July, it's all about content strategy and content creation. So if that is something that you're struggling with and knowing how to get your message heard, I hope that you will join me. Until then, have a wonderful week, everybody. Don't settle for sounding like everybody else. Make your message roar. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.